All right, so based on the questions that you guys asked to go through, I'm going to go through these ones here. So I'm not going over every single one that was asked for because if the questions are similar, I want you to apply how we're doing one of these questions to the other ones. So, for instance, someone asked to go through 8 through 19, and 11, 12, 8, they cover all the different types between that 8 and 14. And then when we get to 15, that covers the next couple as well. So, even though I'm not going over every single one, you can still use these problems to then help you with the other ones. It's just the numbers change, but the same thought process is uh, apparent throughout. All right, so we're doing question number 5 here. So when I look at question number 5, I first need to figure out, okay, what is it that they're giving me here? Because we have to figure out this relationship first. So when I look at this, we learned about vertical angles. When I see these look like they kind of can be almost vertical angles, however, exactly how they're written, or if we think about these as two separate angles, and they're not. But if remember, vertical angles are the intersection of two angles, or two lines. So here's the two lines that are intersecting, and then it's the angles that are directly across or opposite of each other, and they're equal. So that means these two angles combined is equal to this angle here because they are opposite or across from each other when the two lines intersect. You may see this line or this ray here and think, oh, well, that can't make it vertical angle. But if we just ignore that for a second, we can see that these two are going to be equal to this because they are vertical. So I can then say, well, 88 plus x is equal to 167. And then I can subtract 88 from both sides and get that x is then equal to 79. All right, and then that will be it for this answer because all you're asked to do is solve for x. Let's go on to the next question. All right, so we're asked to solve for this question mark here. So the angle, what is this angle? What is the measure of this angle? So we want to know what is the measurement of this angle from here to here. Well, in order for me to solve for that, I need to then solve for what this angle is because I know that these two angles form a straight line. So if I can solve for x, I can solve for the question mark because I know that they'll add up to be 180. So now my next thing is, okay, well, let me look and see, well, what is this x part of? And if I look here, I see, oh, well, this x is part of a triangle. So if I can then figure out this angle that I'm going to label y, then I can solve for x because I know that a triangle adds up to 180 degrees. So I look and see, oh, well, they're giving me 137 here, and I know y and 137 form a straight line. They're supplementary, so they add up to 180. So I can then say 137 plus y is equal to 180. I'll subtract 137 from both sides, and that means that y is equal to 43 degrees. So that means this angle here, I now know is 43 degrees. So if I know this angle and this angle of a triangle, I can solve for that missing angle because I know that a triangle adds up to 180 degrees. So I can do 43 plus 102 plus x is equal to 180. Well, these two add up to give me 145 plus x is equal to 180. I subtract 145, and then that gives me that x is equal to 35. So now I solve for this angle. And once I solved for that, I now know I can solve for my question mark angle measurement because I know that these two will add up to 180. So I get 108, I'm sorry, let me write it first with the 35. So I get 35 plus x, or plus question mark, is equal to 180. So I subtract 35, subtract 35. So the question mark is then equal to 145 degrees. All right, so that question mark's angle measurement is 145 degrees. If we were to take a protractor out and measure it, that's what we would get if this was drawn accurately. All right, let's go ahead and go on to the next question. All right, so once again, for question number 11, we're asked to solve for the question mark. So we want to know, what is this angle measurement equal to? So when we look at this, it's okay, we need to figure out, well, what type of relationship can we find with this question mark? Well, it's part of this triangle. So that means in order for me to solve for what this missing angle is, I'll need to go ahead and solve for this missing angle x because I know that this yellow triangle will add up to 180. So my goal then is to say, okay, well, how do I solve for x? Well, I know that x and this angle are going to be the exact same measurement because they're vertical angles. They're across from each other that form when these two lines intersect. So now my goal is, okay, if I can solve for this angle, I can solve for x, which then means I can solve for the question mark. So let me look and see where that other x is part of. And when I look at the other x I just created that was its vertical angle, I see it's part of this green triangle. And when I look at what was given to me in this green triangle, they do give me two of the three angles. So that means I can solve for that missing angle x because I know that the green angle or triangle will add up to 180. So 20 plus 40 plus x is equal to 180. So then 60 plus x is equal to 180. I subtract, I don't know why I wrote 20. I said 60. So I'll subtract 60 from both sides. And that tells me that x is equal to 120 degrees. So that means that this angle was 120, but that also means that this angle is 120 as well because they are vertical. So now I look and say, oh, okay, well, I can solve for question mark now because I have two of the three angles for the triangle. So 39 plus 120 plus the question mark is equal to 180 as well. So 159 plus question mark is equal to 180. I subtract 159 from both sides, and that means that our question mark is now equal to 21 degrees. So the measure of this angle is 21 degrees, or the question mark is equal to 21 degrees. And that is it for this question. Now let's move on to the next. All right, so now for question number 12, same thing. We're asked to find the question mark. So solve for the question mark. So we want to know the angle measurement of this angle here because that's what the question mark represents. So same thing as we've been saying before. Let's look and see, okay, well, what is this question mark part of? What type of relationship is formed with this, what we're trying to solve for? Because it will help us to figure out what we need to do next. So when I highlight where it's part of this triangle, just like we were doing in the other ones. So that means in order for me to solve for a question mark, I need to know both of the other triangle angles. I know this is 35. I don't know this. So I'm going to put x here and say, well, I need to solve for x. So now that I know I need to solve for x, I look at that and say, well, what is this part of? Well, this is part of a straight line with these two other angles, one of which I know is 50 degrees, and now I need to solve for this one. So I'm going to denote that as y. So if I can solve for this missing angle of the other triangle, which I'll highlight green, then that means that I can solve for the missing triangle of my yellow, or missing angle of my yellow triangle, because I know that they're going to add up to 180 because the three angles form a straight line. So I look and say, okay, well, this y is part of the green triangle, and they do give me the other two angles. So I know I can do 60 plus 65 plus y is equal to 180. So 125 plus y is equal to 180. I subtract 125. And that means that y is then equal to 55 degrees. So once again, now that I solved for this, I now have these three angles will add up to give me 180, and the only thing I'm missing now is this x, so I can solve for it. So I can say 55 plus 50 plus x is equal to 180. So this will give me 105 plus x is equal to 180. I'll subtract 105 from both sides, and that tells me that x is then equal to 75 degrees. So now I'm going to erase this x, and I'm going to put what I just solved for there, 75. So now when I look at this yellow triangle, I'm only down to one unknown now, and that's the question mark. I have 35, I have 75, and now I need to solve for my question mark. So I'm going to go ahead and write this here. So 35 plus 75 plus the question mark is equal to 180 degrees because that's part of a triangle. So this is 110 plus the question mark is equal to 180. I'll subtract 110 from both sides, and that means I'll write the answer here that our question mark is equal to 70 degrees. So this angle is 70 degrees, and our question mark is also equal to 70 degrees because there's nothing else being done to it except for just a question mark. All right, so for all these problems, we have to then think about the relationship of what we're trying to solve. What are some of the rules that we learned, whether if it's a vertical angle, adjacent, supplementary, complementary, well, if it's adjacent, like what will it add up to? Is it part of a triangle? And once we identify its relationship, then we know what we need to solve for it. And if we don't have that, we need to keep looking through the image and saying, well, what can I do to get to the information I need? So you see, in some of these, we had to apply multiple things that we learned in this unit so far in this one problem. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next ones now. The next ones are going to be a little bit different. All right, so now for question number 15, it says solve for x, and it's a little bit different than the one that we did before because you see that this x isn't just our angle. So before, all the ones that we were solving for, that question mark was the entire angle, but now this angle is represented by more than just x. It's this whole x plus 74. So it's a little bit different. But we look and say, okay, well, what is this a part of? Well, it's still giving us this angle of a triangle, and we know that a triangle adds to 180. So that means then that we would say 55 plus 54, because that's these two angles, plus our third angle, which is the entire x plus 74, is equal to 180 degrees. So now we go ahead and combine our like terms. So this is then going to give me 109, and 109 plus 74 is then going to give me 183 is equal to 180. So now we go ahead and we subtract over the 183, and we get that x is equal to -3. Now, our variable can be equal to a negative number, but once you see that, what you need to do is you need to plug it in. Even if the question isn't asking you to do it, plug it into our equation or into our triangle and the angle, and make sure it's not giving us a negative angle measurement. Because if I plug this in for x and it gives me negative something for degrees, then we know we made a mistake somewhere, because right now all we're learning is positive angles. So when we plug it in, we would say, well, -3 plus 74 does equal 71. So it's at least giving me a positive angle in return. So then I can say, okay, well, if this is 71 degrees, I can check to make sure that 71, 54, and 55 all add to 180 to make sure I didn't make any mistakes, which they do. All right, and that is our final answer for this one, is x is equal to -3. But when you get a negative as your answer, you just want to make sure it doesn't give you a negative angle measurement as well, because if it did, then you know you made a mistake. All right, then there's the last question we're going to do, and this video is over. All right, so now this last question I'm going to go through, question 18. This one says find the measure of angle A. So it's not just solve for x, or it's not just solve for the question mark. After we solve for it, our ultimate goal is to say, well, what does the measure of angle A equal to? And this is the angle measurement for A. So right now when I look and say, okay, if I need to solve for angle A, first I need to figure out what x is equal to. So I look and say, well, x is part of this triangle. So I need to say, okay, do I have enough information as is to solve for the missing angle measurement of this triangle? And right now I see, no, I don't, because this angle is blank. However, we know that when these two lines intersect, these two angles are vertical, which means they are equal. So if this angle here is also equal to 4x plus 17, we can write 4x plus 17 in for this angle as well, because they're equal to each other. So whatever the one is, the other can be written as the same exact thing. Now, once we do that, we see that we have something written in for all three angles. So I can then say, well, all three of those angles add up to give me 180. So 4x plus 17 plus x plus 23 plus 80 is equal to 180 degrees, because that's my triangle. So I'm going to combine my like terms. Well, this will give me 103, and then 103 plus 17 is 120. So now I have plus 120, and 4x plus x gives me 5x. I'll then go ahead and subtract the 120 from both sides, and 5x is then equal to 60. Divide each side by 5. X is then equal to 12. All right, but remember, it didn't ask us to solve for x, it asked us to find the actual angle A. So A is equal to x plus 23, so my last thing I need to do is substitute that x into that. So x plus 23, so 12 plus 23 is then equal to 35. So the measure of angle A is equal to 35 degrees. All right, when we're asked to find the measure of it, we're saying, well, what is that angle actually equal to? All right, it wasn't just solving for x. Okay, that is it for this video. If you need help with any of the other ones in between, please let me know.